Well,
on this
before I
one.
start, I mean, I think we need to sort of jump to the most important part of this episode, and that is the fact that where was Basil when the Sith Lord turned up? Just happened to disappear from the sights of everybody. Not saying that he's the Sith Lord,
Basil's the
but
Sith Lord.
you know,
Jedi are being hunted.
I sense this is only a small part of a larger plan.
What are you?
This is the clue we need to unravel the mystery of the Sith.
Okay, welcome to the A Long Time Ago Acolyte review show. Today we had episode 4, Day. Spoiler warning, there are going to be spoilers. We're talking about the whole episode, so if you haven't seen it, make sure you go back and watch it before you come here. With that out of the way, let's get our guest in. Now, he's probably the second most handsome Adam on YouTube, because I hear Adam Levine started a channel. He is a dude, he likes his toys, and he is real. It's Adam Berry. How's it going, Adam?
Howdy. How you doing?
Yeah, all right. Thank you. All right.
It's a good intro. I did laugh.
Good. That's what I was after. Okay, so you're more of a casual Star Wars fan compared to, say, Martyn, for instance. So it'd be good to get the opinions of you, who you're not particularly steeped in the lore of Star Wars, but you have watched all the episodes of The Acolyte so far.
Correct.
So not including episode 4 then. What are your thoughts on the series?
Not including episode 4.
Not including episode 4, because we'll get to that shortly.
I think for me, it's like I've said this a couple of times privately to, probably some people, and that it's just very meh. Like I just kind of I haven't been bowled over by it, but I'm not feeling the hatred that maybe some other people might be towards the show. I just kind of, it's just, I'm trying to separate it as well from Star Wars, which sounds bizarre, but I like to look at things with a slightly different lens. So you've got I'm trying not to look at it with okay, this is a Star Wars show. It's following the same lore and stuff like that. I'm trying to take myself away from it and just say, you know what, I'm just going to look at it as a separate show. And would I enjoy it as a separate show if I didn't know all about Star Wars or Star Wars lore and stuff like that? So that's where I'm at with it. I do feel, I will say this, and I said this the other day to someone, a close friend of mine. I get the feeling there's kind of two camps when it comes to the Acolyte. Like there's the ones that hate it and then the ones that just don't. But that doesn't mean I like it either. So it's it's one of them things with me.
Yeah, like I think a lot of us are in agreement. We haven't been blown away by it. It's not amazing as a series, but it isn't terrible either. It's enough to keep you coming back each week to see what's going to happen, I think. So, but so what have you rated the series so far out of 10?
Without sitting on a fence and getting extreme amount of splinters, definitely it's a solid 5 out of 10 for me. Like I do genuinely think that there's been some nice moments, and I genuinely believe that as well. There's been some cool little moments, and I thought, okay. And there's been a lot of so it's just straight down the middle. That's episode 1 at 3 anyway. So
no, that's right. So episode 4 then. How did you enjoy that?
I really enjoyed it. I would actually, my personal view is I actually think it was my favorite episode so far. I'm not saying it's the best, and I'm sure other people have different views, but I quite enjoyed it. And there's a lot of walking. And I felt like I was on one of my long distance hikes, to be honest. But there was a lot of walking. But I didn't dislike that in a way. And I don't know. Obviously, the ending with what it was and stuff like that. Like I said, without going too much, I'm sure we've got different points of view on it. But I definitely would say, whereas the whole series has been quite run of the mill for me, I felt that was a better episode for my personal point of view.
Well, I'm in agreement with you, to be honest. This was probably my favorite episode so far. I mean, it had it wasn't perfect by any means. It had its downsides, if you like, but in general, it was probably the most entertaining one for me so far, I think.
Basil's a
Martyn?
legend, ain't he? I loved Basil.
Did you like Basil?
Honestly, I'm Basil's #1 fan.
Oh.
The little mole. Was he a mole? I don't know.
I don't know what that was. No, I'm not.
A mole or a
entirely
beaver.
sure. Something like that. Yeah, Martyn,
Well-
what were your thoughts on?
Well,
this
before I
one?
start, I mean, I think we need to sort of jump to the most important part of this episode, and that is the fact that where was Basil when the Sith Lord turned up? Just happened to disappear from the sights of everybody. Not saying that he's the Sith Lord, but you know, it could be.
Imagine.
Well, the episode 4 for me. Well, to be contrary once again, I didn't like this episode very much, which is it's really weird because it had really good moments, but once again it had so many not law-breaking moments, but really questionable dialogue, questionable decisions that were made, questionable things that happen that could jeopardize what happens in future Star Wars. And I won't go into too much detail now, but I mean, yeah, for me, it was saved, that episode, really, from being my least favorite episode purely by the last 60 seconds of the episode.
Yeah.
I thought, you know, I'm sure we'll come on to it, but I thought that last 60 seconds was phenomenal. And that's the sort of thing I wanted to see when I heard they were making a series about the Sith. But, you know, as I say, we'll probably go into more detail in a bit. But yeah, that's my overall thought of the episode, to be honest with you.
No, I did think that, to sort of agree with you in some cases, the dialogue was a bit sort of disjointed and a bit maybe rushed in some ways. Particularly May with his name's Chimera, I think. Chimera.
Yeah, Chimera. Yeah.
Chimera. I couldn't remember what his name was, but yes, their sort of interactions I felt were a little bit sort of unusual.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, they might as well have stamped Sith Lord on the top of his forehead for most of that dialogue in those scenes. It was so blatant, the dialogue, to show that he was the Sith Lord, that by the end of the episode I was thinking, well, it's so obvious that it can't be him, because otherwise that would just be stupid next week if it reveals as him. This must be some sort of red herring. But I just don't think the writers of the show have quite got the skill to make that happen. I think it will be him. I don't think there's any doubt in anybody's mind it's going to be him. It's got to be him. I mean, it's too obvious. And as I say, I just don't get me wrong, you know, I've been very positive about this show more than anybody, I think, since we've been doing this, but I just don't think the writers have quite got the talent's probably the wrong word, but the I don't know, the chutzpah to fire off some sort of twist where we all think it's him and then actually turns out to be someone else. But yeah, that's just what I think about that.
Well, I mean,
I preferred your first theory about it might be Basil. That would have been
Well, I mean, there goes my sort of finishing question for this episode, because I was going to say, who do we think's behind the mask, and I was going to caveat that with it's probably him, but because of the way he was, I don't know, he was quite careful with what he said, wasn't he? Bit suspect.
Yeah,
but
definitely. Well, we still have the problem with, and I'm no actor, so I can't really comment, but we still have the problem with the acting being a bit suspect. You know, it doesn't seem like that seems to have gone away. I don't know. I just feel, and that maybe led into the fact them interactions that Martyn were talking about as well. They just felt a bit wooden at times and a bit like forced. And you're right with the dialogue, but you know. Yeah, I'm trying not to be too critical, but
no. Well, I mean, as long as it's, as I think Stu said last week, it's fine to be critical as long as you've got reason to be critical, and you're not one of those people that just says I hate it and then that's it, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, I agree. I think those interactions. I think the guy who plays Chimera, I thought he was actually acting quite well. It was more May who was kind of, I don't know, it just felt a bit off. Like you say, I'm not sure. You know, she could quite hold her own against him. And, you know, if I could just go through a couple of things I liked so that I'm not completely negative. I felt that during the episode, there was a real underlying sense of tension and foreboding, like something was coming. And that was really nice. I like that. It kind of felt a bit Star Warsy. And I thought, again, the coolest part of the episode was definitely where you saw in the blurry in the background, you saw the Sith Lord sort of hovering down using the Force
Really
to land
cool.
behind her. That was amazing. And then walking up to May. Osha, and then she turns around, and I just love the way he just nonchalantly went like that, and she goes flying. I thought that was absolutely superb. That was totally Star Wars, and I really, really enjoyed that. But then you had these were the good things in the episode, which were completely then mirror image by the really bad things, where you have these grand vista shots of them walking across mountains like Lord of the Rings, and then they reach the forest, and they're quite clearly on a set, with fake trees around them, and the lighting's completely terrible compared to where they were out on the mountains, and it was quite, I've heard they've spent a lot of money on the show, and I just thought, well, where's the money gone? I thought even on the Mandalorian, where you have the what's it called, the big screen, I always forget the name of it, the help me out. They stand in front of the big screen. The volume.
The volume.
They have the volume. I thought that actually looked better than the sets they were using in the forest. So, it was kind of give and take episode, really, with what I liked and disliked. Don't know what you thought.
Touching on like you said, the wide angle shots I thought were beautifully done. Actually, like I really enjoyed a lot of the cut scenes and the wide angle stuff. But I agree. Towards the end, especially when they got to, I can't remember the actual, but obviously the name of the Wookiee Jedi. They got to, that's it. They got to his like little base. It did look a bit, well, I don't know. I don't even know how to say it. Just like cardboard. It just looked a bit naff, but
yeah. So
sorry, Adam.
Go on. I was just going to say, speaking of Kelnacker's abode, if you like, do we know what the symbols were? Were they the witches' symbols from the previous episode? Now, why would we think he's got those in there?
Well, if I go, I mean, I think I made the prediction last week that obviously we're going to see the flashbacks from the different point of view that we saw last week, and I'm convinced that the witches possessed one of the Jedi, which caused them to fight. And I'm thinking now it was Kelnacker who they possessed, because he'd be the strongest of the four.
Yeah.
And because that's their sign of their power, he's obviously still got them in his head or something. So he's subconsciously doing all these patterns on his ship. That's my theory. Whether it's right or not, we'll see. But because I think you hear that their mystical music playing, thankfully not their chanting, but their mystical music playing while while they're showing those symbols on his wall. So that would be my guess anyway.
Yeah.
Some of it is, like I said, I think a bit like spoon-fed and stuff like that. But like what? See, obviously, I'm coming at it with, I don't know as much as the lore as say probably either of you two when it comes to Star Wars. Like, obviously, I've watched pretty much all Star Wars. However, I'm probably not as an ardent fan as some people. But is there going to be an Osha and May fight off? They kind of keep hinting massively at that. You know what I mean? Is that going to, I don't know if that would be too obvious to, like, would that be the big thing at the end of the series? I just feel like it'd be a bit letdown if that's what it is, you know what I mean? And stuff like that. But it's like they're pushing that massively. So I don't know. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think that's where it will head or do you think not at all?
Well, I mean, there's still a bit of mystery around the series in that sort of sense. And in this episode, they kind of showed May almost turning herself in.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
Does that suggest that she's going to become good, or is she acting? Is this some sort of play to get into the, I don't know, the Jedi temple, if you like, or get to the Jedi? But also, on the other hand, I was thinking that Osha, she mentions resentment, and that's kind of like another sort of way of saying anger and hate towards May. So could there be like a switch in their beliefs or their powers, and or do they join forces and go together by the end of the series and take down the Sith person themselves. I don't know. There's still, for me, there's still quite a bit of mystery there.
There is,
Well,
yeah.
I
Probably
think there's two things there. I think firstly, when we mentioned earlier, we saw the Sith Lord walk up to Osha and just go like that and fly off to the side. And he gave her a good look, so I think he's quite interested in her. We don't know why. Otherwise, he would have just killed her there and then, I'm sure. And secondly, going back to May, the biggest travesty of the entire episode and something that I just groaned at was when she immediately just turned around and said, "Why am I doing this? I should be on Osha's side. I'm going to go and turn myself into the Jedi." We've just had 2 episodes watching her take out Jedi.
Really dark as well.
Yeah, kill many people. Then we have a flashback episode of her quite clearly becoming, she's definitely the dark side of the Force, whereas Osha is portrayed as the light side of the Force, kind of the yin and yang.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, just like that, she decides, oh, actually, I'm going to hand myself in and they can take me to prison and, I'll pay for my crimes. And I was watching it with Steph and Steph said, no, there's absolutely no way that's real. My wife says she thinks that May realizes that, what's his name? Khmer is the Sith Lord, and she wants to sort of drag it out of him to prove that it's him. So she's running off to pretend that, she's going to be good, whereas really she's doing it to try and get him to reveal himself. But I just turned to Steph and said, I'd love to think that was the reasoning behind it, but again, it goes back to, I just don't think the writers would do anything that complicated isn't the right word, but you know what I mean. It's just, I just think there's too many layers to that, and this is quite a linear show, really, isn't it? It's not got many layers to it thus far. And I will say, I've always said this from the first episode, I will not judge this show until I've seen it as a whole. Because we're all, like everyone, just seeing parts of what's going on. We don't even know the truth behind what happened in episode 3 yet. So, I'll hold my judgment. But it was that for me was the biggest crime of the episode, was that instantaneous turn back to the good being good again, with no explanation other than, oh, I've seen my sister again, I'm going to be good. But yeah, I don't think there'll be any kind of confrontation between the two of them. I think Adam's right. I think it'll be more a case of the two of them teaming up at some point, perhaps to try and take out the bad guys or even the Jedi. Who knows?
Which is, I would probably, he says it's a bit of an easy cop out, but I think I would prefer that, because to me they're pushing the whole kind of all duel against each other too much. And I think if they just went down that route, it'd be a bit like, oh, well, yeah, you basically told us that from the beginning, or given us that kind of thought from the beginning. So I would be quite happy for that to happen rather than just the obvious thing to happen, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, it's interesting hearing your points, Martyn, definitely, in the respect of there's things you're saying now, and I'm actually thinking, and I watched it twice, but it's just looking at it from a different view. So, because I tend to look, I'm probably a bit more casual of a viewer. So for me, I just look at it and go, okay, was it fun to watch? Did I enjoy that 38 minutes or whatever it was, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I probably don't think too much of the minutiae and that. So it's quite interesting hearing that kind of thing, because from just a more casual viewer, like I said, I would still stand by the fact I quite enjoyed the episode, though. But there was a couple of things that I think, actually, that's pretty meh. Again, going back to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's perhaps a weakness, is the fact that, I wish I could sit and watch it and just not think, well, in 26 BBY this happened, so that couldn't happen. That actually is more of a hindrance to enjoying anything these days, because there's so much of it, and having to keep up with trying to remember everything as well. And and I suppose we complain about the makers of these shows. It must be difficult for them sometimes to remember what's happened in the past. And so it's I think there's something to be said. There's too much content perhaps at the moment. We've gone from 3 movies every 15 years to all of a sudden there's 2 shows a year, maybe 3 sometimes. Then there's an animated show, and then there's all the other bits and bobs that come with it, the computer games, the books. It's just a bit too much. And I think Marvel have probably suffered from the same issues over the last couple of years as well. Too much content. Yeah,
it's an interesting one because I remember when obviously it's going back a few years now, isn't it? When Disney obviously bought the rights, and it was like they said, "Oh, we're gonna," I think there was this like infographic going around with all the logos, weren't it? And stuff like Bad Batch and all that. And I just thought, like, we've gone from nothing to having about 12 shows that are going to pop up. Like, what the hell? Like, it's. But I got me. Like I said, I am a big Star Wars fan, but I'm probably not as hardened or like kind of hardcore as some. So I probably do come a bit from a slightly more like just easy breezy kind of view, which probably will infuriate a lot of people because
I mean, it shouldn't, should it?
No. And if there are people who get angry because you like something, then they're not really worth taking any notice of, are they? To be quite honest with you, I mean, I was quite surprised this week when I checked YouTube this morning that there was all videos by people who last week said Star Wars was over for them and it was destroyed.
Oh, really?
Destroyed it. And then the same people who said that they weren't going to talk about Star Wars anymore had all made videos this morning. I found it quite amazing, to be honest with you. But there you go.
And that was something I was thinking of earlier today when writing the notes for this one. Most of the people that hate it should be out now, so they can leave the rest of it to us. We can do the reviews from now on.
I will go back. I will go back though. I do think you either hate it or you don't. I'm not saying I like it. That's the thing. I'm just not. I'm not a hater. Like does that automatically make me someone who loves it? I don't think so personally. But so I'm very much like a bit. I'm a bit just like I'll watch it. Do I look forward to every week? Probably not, but I do make sure I watch it every week. It's not like sort of some Mandalorian episodes where I was like, I can't wait for next week, kind of thing. So it's not like that. But I'll definitely watch it, and I'll watch it till the end because I want to see what happens and stuff like that. But there's the odd bit of question. Like I said, as long as there's more Basil, that's what it is. Give me some more Basil, honestly.
Well,
I don't know what it is about random little creatures that people in Star Wars seem to, some people in Star Wars seem to get affection for. But I thought it was brilliant. As soon as he came on the screen, I was like, yeah, this dude's awesome. He's my man. Like, it's crazy.
Fair enough.
There'll be a toy out next week, so we'll be able to sort you out.
And I'll be buying it.
That one. Absolutely. Now, so you say about watching the next episode, it doesn't always leave you wanting more, but this episode sort of ended on a bit of a cliffhanger, didn't it? And like Martyn said, the last 60 seconds of this episode kind of what made it, really.
Well, that was, to me, that was classic Star Wars, the last 60 seconds in respect of the igniting of the lightsaber. And it sounds really stupid. It's it's a red one, like kind of thing. It's a bad one, like what I mean. It's kind of like that. Even that was just like, which was obvious when he was, but the floating down, I thought was so well done. It was just enough delay and the timing, and obviously, I felt, like you said, last 60 seconds was like, that did probably elevate my score based on the episode.
Absolutely. I thought as well, when she ran into the ship and she discovered Kelnaka had been killed by him, and the sun finally set just at that moment, and it went black, and then it switched outside in the Jedi, and I thought that was actually some really good directing. I thought that was fantastic. The shroud of the dark side had fallen. It was absolutely brilliant. And I always love those moments when the Jedi sense the dark side and they give that look on their face, and you see Master Soul sort of turn around because he feels there's something not quite right out there. And the reactions of the Jedi, because to be honest with you, quite a few of those Jedi are quite clearly going to be red shirts, aren't they? And
that's in my notes as well.
They all turned around and they gave that look of absolute horror, not knowing what the hell that was. Because of course we're led to believe that no one knows what the Sith are anymore. They haven't been around for quite a long time. So it was a fantastic last 60 seconds, but I guarantee you next episode it won't start from that. We'll get another episode. It'll be another flashback episode, but from the point of view of the others. So and I think that will ignite a massive fire if that is the case. But we'll see.
I think you're right.
That makes sense.
as you said, Soul turned round first. Oh, I don't know if you said Soul turned round first, but he was the first to turn round. Is that a sign of his power, do you think? Is it the fact that he's a master, or do you think he's, he sensed the dark side before anyone else did?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think different Jedi have different, strengths and powers, and some are stronger than others. I just think because he's kind of a Qui-Gon Jinn figure in this. I said this in the first episode. Qui-Gon Jinn is my favorite Jedi in all of Star Wars. Take away Luke Skywalker, take away Anakin Skywalker, Qui-Gon Jinn for me has always been my favorite character, and he has so many of Qui-Gon Jinn's traits in this show that it makes sense that he would be the first person to recognize that there wasn't something quite right going on. So yeah, what about you?
I don't know really. I think he is obviously more powerful than the other guys there. I don't know whether that sort of shows that it's a sign of his strength. I don't know. Like you said, I mean, I can only really mirror what you've said, and that they've all got their own sort of strengths, and that could be one of his. But yeah,
we'll find out hopefully next week.
Yeah, whether we do, but yeah. And like I say, who are we going to lose next week? There are a lot of unrecognised Jedi in there.
Yeah, definitely some cannon fodder, wasn't there? Like ready lined up. So yeah, I think I counted 8 or 9 Jedi. So I thought, yeah, you're going to use at least half of them are going to be gone, aren't they? So
definitely.
But even just the whole kind of the push and just they all. That
was awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah.
And even there are a few moments before that within the episode. Trying to sort of hint at other things, like Osha touching the like cockroach type thing, and actually sort of feeling something that is she getting her sense of force back? Well, she said she was.
Yeah, definitely.
Are we going to see a return to her training? Or
wood louses, weren't they?
Yeah.
That's what it reminded me of.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't touch one though, would you? If you saw one of those,
I did think, like, why are you doing that?
Yeah. I mean, there were some great bits. I mean, let's talk about the Ki-Adi-Mundi in the room. The fact that Ki-Adi-Mundi turns up, and
Ki-Adi-Mundi and Plo Koon, and much like the prequels. Was it not Plo Koon? No, it's just one of his species, was it?
No, my bullet points at the end, I'll go through that. But Ki-Adi-Mundi in Legends, and I'm just going to say it again, in Legends is only 70 years old, or 60 years old in The Phantom Menace. So everyone's complaining, of course, he shouldn't be in this because he wouldn't be alive yet, but it's in Legends, so they've just changed it to become canon that he was around. But this opens up a massive problem for me, and it's one I said that from the beginning is, and I was convinced they'd come up with a really good reason, and they still may do so. But Ki-Adi-Mundi was the first to say in The Phantom Menace, the Sith have been extinct for a millennia. So what's going on there? He's obviously not on the High Council yet. What's her name? Venestra. I forget all their names. Yeah, she doesn't want the High Council to find out about any of it. It's all very strange what's going on there. So again, I'm going to hold judgment. I'm not going to talk about Ki-Adi-Mundi too much because there may be a good enough explanation for why he doesn't mention it in The Phantom Menace. But they need to do a good job to convince me that he wouldn't remember that only 100 years previous to him having that chat with Qui-Gon, that he heard of some guy with a big red lightsaber that massacred a load of Jedi. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know.
Maybe it's his granddad or something. So they didn't mention him by name, did they?
No, but he's in the credits as Ki-Adi-Mundi. That's the first thing I checked. Yeah, I wanted to make sure because I was really disappointed they didn't use Silas Carson, who played him in the Phantom Menace. To be honest with you, I don't know why they didn't choose the same actor, but anyway, sorry.
Yeah, see that's interesting. I've heard that since watching the episode, but obviously to me, that I wouldn't have known how old he was. So, that would have been something that registered to me. Yeah. So it wouldn't have been a negative for me because I would have been like, okay. So that's where I think the difference is between, obviously, you've got people who know a bit about Star Wars and then people know a lot about Star Wars. So, So.
No, I think it's made up hate, to be honest with you, because it's not something that's canon. So if it's not canon, then
Yeah.
if it's what do they call it, legends or the EU or whatever, it's not actually fact. So people have latched onto it and given it that a reason why, you know, it's a negative. But you know, it's just the way of the world. Unfortunately, it's like you said, you either like something or you hate something, and it's fine to be both. But you know, some people have to take it a step too far, don't they? Yeah.
I do think, like I said, I kind of like, I'm like you in the respect of, even if I am kind of on the fence, like I said, up until this episode, I'd give it a solid 5 out of 10. In this episode, obviously, you know, it's probably obvious that I might be willing to give it a bit more, but I still want to see all of it before I'm past full judgment, if you know what I mean, and stuff like that. And it is all about opinions, because I know this is obviously, in terms, it's an Acolyte review show, but everybody loved Andor. Now, I didn't dislike Andor, but I didn't love it as much as everybody else. Like, you know, I thought it was good, but I weren't like, oh my God, it's amazing. Like it feels like 95% of people are. So, you know, it's kind of, it's fascinating just seeing people's different views. Like, I've already seen a few different views today, and I'm just like, I didn't see it like that.
Yeah.
And then you kind of feel a bit like, oh, do I say my view or do I don't? Because you kind of don't want that confrontation. You know what I mean? It's just like,
Adam, you now nailed it on the head. I'm afraid sometimes to actually write or say what I think about something, because I'm in the minority, and it's kind of like, I don't really. It's just not. Life's too short to have those sort of like confrontations and arguments. So I'd rather just, like, you know, leave it as, if I like it, it's great. If I don't, I don't. Yeah. I'm not going to like push my opinion on anyone else. You know, it's just, it's like you say, Andor. It's interesting you say Andor, because I've never really said it before, but Andor isn't my favorite show that they've done. I liked it just like you did. I thought in places it was superb, but it's not the greatest Star Wars TV show ever made. I think that still belongs to The Mandalorian, to be honest with you. And
I would agree.
I think it's very adult Star Wars, which was great, which is what we've wanted for a while, but it was a bit boring in places. I've got to be honest. It was really boring. And I think when Adam and I talked about it on this podcast, it was kind of a bit, it was a bit slow.
Slow paced, wasn't it?
Yeah. But
the first 2 or 3 episodes was snail pace.
Yeah. But I think after a rewatch, when you're able to actually sit there and just binge it, it actually is a lot better. And I'm thinking that perhaps this show might be the same. Perhaps when we get to watch all 8 episodes, it might, you know, actually improve slightly, because there's more of a flow to it. So yeah, we'll see.
But people's opinions change as well. I do think, like, obviously we've all known, obviously, like I said, we're all Star Wars fans, but, you know, Attack of the Clones was always deemed as the worst of the prequels. And now there's quite a lot of love for that. You know, it feels that way anyway. And I was probably one of them people who said I was a bit bored of it, very political. And I've gone back since, like, years back, and I've watched it and I thought, it's quite good, actually. Like, you know, and so it's people's opinions do change over time. So, you know, as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. Let's get into notes then, because Martyn's always got a load of bullet points.
So
Adam, have you got any before Martyn jumps in? Have you got any?
I've got some, but they're pretty much all what we've already discussed. So let's go, Martyn.
Okay. So the first one is the phrase "true Jedi" was brought up in the one of the conversations, and I thought that was hilarious, because it's kind of a reference to Lego Star Wars, because when you collect enough of the little tokens and the bar along the top says "True Jedi." So whether or not that's an Easter egg, I don't know, but I did chuckle a little bit when I saw that. I've also, jokingly put Basil was nowhere to be seen when the Sith Lord turned up. I've already said that. Now the ship that Kamir and May landed in, if you have a good look at it, there's an orb for a cockpit. So if you were to just take that orb and change the wings slightly, that is a dead-on copy of Darth Maul's Sith infiltrator from the Phantom Menace. So again, bit of a clue there, I think, perhaps that Kamir is going to be the Sith Lord. There are more hints that the Jedi are trying to keep this all in house so that the Senate and the political rivals don't find out. I really enjoy that. I really enjoy the politics of this era and the prequel era. So I'm hoping that goes somewhere, and we actually, finally get to see the High Council and the fallout from all of this. As I mentioned earlier, the Sith Lord took great interest in Osha, so I think perhaps that's who he's really after, maybe as an apprentice. We'll see. Behind Osha in the Jedi Temple, when Sol's talking to her just before she gets to the docking bay, there's an alien just behind her while she's talking to him, and I'm fairly sure it's the species of sort of cat-like alien that we saw in the Bad Batch. You know, the episode where Cad Bane steals the baby from the mother, and he stuns the mother and steals the baby. I'm fairly sure that that's the same alien species, and I haven't had time to look on the internet to find out what the name of that species is, because you know how good I am at species. So yeah, I think that was definitely one of those. And the Keldar that we saw isn't Plo Koon. There was a tweet put out by Star Wars that it's a Keldar named Ithia Pan. So unfortunately, it's because I love myself some Plo Koon, but it isn't. It's Ithia Pan, and that's all the notes I had for the episode.
Fair enough. I've got a couple of notes, which I'm going to put out there. In the Padawan training, the guy taking the training says maximize your defenses without needing to strike. Now that kind of backs up what you were saying, I think last week. Wasn't it, Martyn? Last week you were saying about the Jedi not using their lightsabers that much?
No, well, they wouldn't have to in this era. I'll maintain that argument. There's no other lightsabers to fight against, and it's only really blasters they need to help with. So,
a splinter order. What's that? Any ideas? They mention a splinter order.
Yeah, I have never read any of the novels, but the High Republic novels, there's these splinter force organizations, if you like. I don't know what their names are, but the Jedi clamp down on them, and to try and make sure that they are the only force, organization's not the right word, but the only people that use the force are the Jedi, which is why I think in that flashback episode they were sort of investigating the witches, because obviously they were using the force, and they didn't want them using it because they wanted to monopolize the force, if you like. So but that might be a good reason for why the Sith aren't suspected, because they think it might be some sort of splinter organization.
Fair enough. Now, Sol says at one point about May, there is still good in her. It kind of mirrors Luke talking about Vader. Something that I noticed in a couple of times they do mirror the trilogies, if you like, the original and the prequels. My only other thing, am I the only one, or does the Jedi ship remind anyone of the Planet Express ship in Futurama?
I didn't notice, but now that's all I'm going to see.
That's
I did notice what you said about the Sith infiltrator ship being. I noticed that straight away, because I didn't notice it straight away. I noticed it on the second viewing tonight. I thought, oh, that looks a bit, but I didn't really put two and two together, because I probably weren't thinking that deeply. But I did notice, that reminds me of like a Sith infiltrator. It looks a bit like kind of a bit Darth Maul-y.
Definitely.
Yeah. Cool. Good. Right, shall we give our scores for the episode then? Adam, let's go with you first.
Okay. I'm just purely going to go with a bit of fun and joy because of Basil. I'm going to chuck a 7.
7.
I enjoyed it, and the ending was so good. That last 60 seconds was so good. For me, like I said, all the other episodes I've struggled to say whether I thought they were any good or bad. This one, it felt like a good episode to me. So I'm going to go, it was definitely for me the best one, enjoyment-wise. Whether it was, a strong in terms of like story and backstory, maybe not, but I'm going to go 7.
Yep, that's good. Martyn?
Well, I was going to give it a 5, and then the last 60 seconds happened, so that bumps it up to a 6.5. Yeah, 6.5. Let's be generous. 6.5.
Good. Yeah. So same really. It was a better paced episode for me. There was a bit of tension in there. Left us on a cliffhanger, but Martyn's kind of ruined my thoughts on that by saying that they might not give it to us next week. It will definitely
be a flashback. I'm with Martyn.
I think,
yeah. It's a classic.
So that will bum me out. They do. Yeah, you're right. I hadn't thought about it though. But you're right. They do. But you know, I thought it was a decent episode, so I'm going 6.5 as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's pretty.
That's
good.
like I said, that's not bad. Like, obviously, from all the other weeks, and obviously watching back, obviously how you've scored the other ones as well, Dev.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, is it? We all know that. And what I think is quite interesting while like watching obviously these review shows is obviously we all know Martyn is a big Star Wars fan in my eyes. Like he's got a lot of knowledge there, and it's interesting to see a bit of a different view without just saying, like you said, don't like it and I won't watch it because of maybe one scene or one line or something like that.
Yeah.
I just think that's a bit of a shame, personally.
Yeah, no,
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, that is it for episode 4. We are now halfway through the series, so let us know in the comments how you're finding it so far. Massive thanks to you, Adam, for joining us. That was really good. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you for the invite.
Toy collectors, you should go and follow him on Instagram at Real Toy Dude. I nearly said the Real Toy Dude, but it's just Real Toy Dude at Real Toy Dude. Yeah. Hit like if you enjoyed this one, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll catch you in the next one. We'll see you later.
Bye.